Hello and welcome to Vancouver Carpenter. Today I'm going to teach you how to caulk your trim, or if you're conservative, you can call it caulk. But we don't call it that, it's caulk. So first off, we need to be really clear about what products we're using. We're specifically talking about latex caulking for paint grade trim. This is not stain grade trim where you're seeing the wood, this is paint grade trim. So this first one I have right here is called a urethanized elastomeric sealant. But basically, this is actually a paintable caulking that you can use anywhere. It's Sherwin-Williams product, Shermax. This is one of the more expensive ones. Let's move on down the line a little bit. So this next one we have here is acrylic latex caulk. So this is just your basic latex caulking that's going to work really well inside. That other one I showed you will work well outside. This one says 45 years on it. The other one says lifetime guarantee on it. But for interior paint grade trim, you really don't need to look a lot further than also this one, the Alex Plus, 35 years. This will be perfect for almost any paint grade caulking applications. It says indoor outdoor on it, but it's not. Just use this stuff inside. If you want to use something inside, it needs to either be the urethanized, so with urethane in it, or the siliconized. So it's got some silicone added into it, but it's still paintable. Let's get on to silicone real quickly. You are not ever going to use silicone to paint over. So silicone is specifically for kitchens and bathrooms. It will never take paint. It will flake off every time you try and paint it. So don't use silicone. Make sure that it says latex caulking. So next, let's get into something really basic. How to cut the tip of your caulking tube. You want to cut it really small. Now I've got two open tubes, so I'm not actually going to cut it, but you just want to nip the very tip of it off at roughly 45 to 30 degrees so that you can just see the whole of it. And it should be small enough that you can't poke it with this thing. Now, you actually don't need to puncture anything in most latex caulking. It's actually open already. But just for point of reference, this thing on your caulking guns shouldn't be able to push into it. Because you can always squeeze more out, but if you make the hole too big, you're always going to be applying too much caulking and you're going to get one of those nasty, messy jobs that you see all over people's houses. So next, let's talk about what kind of caulking gun you can use. They have these ones that are like stop flow ones. They're often yellow. They don't put as much pressure on it when you're squeezing, and you don't have to push this thing to stop the flow. It sort of stops itself. But they're a little bit more anemic in terms of getting a lot of volume out of your caulking gun. So I actually prefer these ones, but whenever you're getting to the end of the run, you've got to consciously push on this to stop the flow. But for people who are more inexperienced, the ones that stop the flow, dripless, that's what they're called. The dripless caulking guns, you're actually going to have an easier time with those. I prefer these ones though because they're faster. So the next things you're going to need, you are going to want a wet cloth and a bucket. I also like to have a putty knife with me for deeper fills. It's also handy to have a shop vac, and you want a duster, so an old brush that isn't suitable for painting anymore, but you keep these around so you can brush dust out of corners that your vacuum can't get. Okay, so this is flowing good. The bead is under 1/8 of an inch. It's pretty small, maybe about 2 millimeters. Mixing metric and imperial here. Well, let's get to caulking something. Now I want you guys to keep in mind, I installed this trim on a Friday. This is Friday trim, so a little caulk and a little paint makes a carpenter what he ain't. You weren't kidding, it was Friday trim. Look at that. So the first thing you want to do is brush out all your corners. You don't want a bunch of dust and debris getting into your caulking joints because it just makes it all nasty and crusty. So next, I like to start away from the corner a little bit. If you want to keep it clean, don't go all the way into the corner and leave a mess. So I'll actually start about 1/8 of an inch away, if you can see that. And then you just run your caulking bead like so. Again, I'm going to start about 1/8 of an inch away right here. I'm going to do these bottom ones in here now. And that one needs a little extra because of that nastiness there. So first we're going to start with the top here, and I'm going to show you why I don't go right into the corner. I've got my rag handy to wipe my finger when necessary. So you can always take a little bit of this material right here that you just pulled off and kind of push it into the corner. And also that little bit that you don't get all the way in, paint is going to fill that too. Paint has some filling and leveling capabilities. I'm going to do that again. Oh, and see there's this little bit right here that needs a bit. I'm just going to kind of place it in there. Like that. Okay, I'm going to do this one now. Like so. I'm going to make sure that there's nothing heavy left over. Now, what about the putty knife? That little blowout at the bottom is going to hollow out if I use my finger. So, I'm taking the putty knife and I'm filling it. But it's left a little bit, so I'm going to go all the way. That's nice and tidy now. I'm going to push this down to the bottom like so. That's nice and tidy. And you get this little bit down here. Keeping a wet finger is really important because that helps you not make a mess. So I keep running my finger on the rag and keeping it wet. As you can see, there's that little bit left. I'm not worried about that. Paint's gonna fill it. Down there, that's looking pretty good now. So now let's take a little more of a bird's eye view here. Okay, so I'm gonna start right here now. And I'm gonna even firm pressure and make sure the bead is consistent the whole way down. And if there's a bigger gap between the baseboard and the wall, you're gonna need to slow down and let a little more caulking get in there. Because I know how much I can do in one moment, I'm going to do this as well. I'm going to keep this clean to make sure that I'm not making a mess when I get to other corners. Now, I can start right here, back into my other one, and I'm just going to kind of feather up lightly. If I can see a line that I've left here, I need to go over it again. So come back from here, do that one, do this one, and I kind of round the corner like so. And I'm making sure that if I can see any fat edges, I'm wiping those off. I'm keeping my finger really wet. And even these little miters in here, if there's just a little sliver of light, you can also fill those in real quick too. Making sure everything's knocked down. Let's continue on with this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a really common defect to watch out for. And it happens when you overload the surface with caulking. So we got a nice even bead going, and oh no, I blew it and put too much right there. Oh, nice even bead again. Okay, I'm wiping, and I'm going to stop right where that fat bit is because I want you guys to see this up close. Okay, here I come to make a big fat mess. Oh, that's awful. So that's what happens when you put too much caulking in. You get these horrible fat edges that you have to clean up. So again, I'm keeping my finger very clean. So that's better, but let's take a close look and see how it looks. So you can see there's still that fat edge. So you've got to take a close eye and pay good attention to detail to make sure that's not there. Because what you need to do to get rid of this is just keep on wiping. And you're going to have to wipe with a wet finger up a little bit higher and feather that edge down. Can't be having any of those hard edges because you'll see them when you paint. And the trick here is to not push your finger in and start moving. In order to not get a big indent, you have to start moving. When you're starting in the middle of a run, you have to start moving. Remember, don't just plant it in and pull it. Start with a moving start. So that's now starting to look a lot better. And my cut line from painting is probably going to take care of the rest. But as you can see, when you get the wrong amount of caulking on there, it takes a lot to fix it. And now I'm happy with this, and we can walk away and do the rest of it. So let's quickly take a look and see what a perfectly laid bead of caulk looks like so you guys can get an idea of what you should be aiming for. So again, starting 1/8 away from the corner, and nice even speed, consistent pressure. So right here you can see what that should look like. It's really consistent and even. And then again, just pretty easy. So now let's take a look at another glaring defect that I left on my Friday. So the jam on this side stuck out way more. So instead of planing it down, I just left it with lots of room to fill. In this case, I know once I caulk this and leave it flush, it's going to be perfectly adequate. But if I use my finger, which is squishy, I'm going to cove it out, because as I press my finger in there, my finger squishes in and it takes out way more material than I want to leave in there. So this is again where the putty knife comes in handy. Okay, so this time I'm having to make sure that I'm leaving it quite full. I need lots of material in there, but not too much. We'll take a quick look at how much material is there before I putty knife it. Oh, out of caulking. Let's make sure it's full. And I may have even just a bit too much in here, but it's better to have the tiniest bit too much in this case than not enough, because otherwise you have to refill it and putty knife it again. So we've got a little bit too much in some spots, but at least it's full. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my putty knife up the trim. Take off the excess. And there's two things I'm doing here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Cleaning off the edge right here. So take quick note that your putty knife has a square edge, like a 90-degree angle here. So at first, I'm going this way to fill it. I'm getting a fat edge along this part, which I'm then using my finger to wipe down. But I am now also going to go this way to knock down this fat edge right here. So up close you can see that it's actually looking pretty darn sharp. It's gonna shrink, but it'll be okay. So I know some of you are gonna crucify me for leaving a gap like that, but how are you guys supposed to know how to fix gaps like that if they don't get left and fixed on video? Also, we all do stuff like that sometimes. Nobody's perfect. Again, a little caulk and a little paint
makes a carpenter what he ain't.
That's right, kids. So there's one last place we need to take a look at, and this one is a pet peeve of mine. Drives me crazy. And it is the top corner of casings and windows where, well, let's take a look actually. This spot, when people don't caulk those nicely. I can't tell you how often I look at window casings and door casings and see just a big splooge in there because somebody loaded that corner full and didn't take the time to clean it out nicely. So let's take a quick look at how we're gonna do this. So as you can see where my 45 is, it's going right in here, and we're gonna keep it just a little bit out of the corner, remember? Now left-handed, I'm gonna try and do this one. That's hard. Oh boy, I'm making a mess. Oh, there we go. That is not working out left-handed. There we go, that's a little bit better. Okay, I've got my rag handy, nice wet finger again. And here's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna push it all into the corner. We're gonna take it out of the corner. Same thing here. Not gonna push it all the way into the corner. And then we've got this little bit right here. We're just gonna take what I had on my finger. Okay, that's looking not bad, but a little more work. There we go. There we go. And there we go. I am happy with that. That's gonna paint up real nicely. Let's get that off of there. Well, that's a pretty good overview of a lot of the basic little tricks and tips I have for making sure my paint grade trim comes out really well. I hope you found this video useful. If you don't want to miss any future videos, be sure to subscribe or just check out the channel frequently. I'm always uploading. There's always going to be something new covering a different topic. So thanks for watching. I hope your project's going well, and until the next video.
Makes a carpenter what he ain't.